And good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to Going Nuclear, full-blown coverage of the land. I am Ethan Greenberg, and alongside of me is my co-host, Madison Delaney. Megan Donovan, under the weather, not going to be with us this evening, so hope she is feeling better soon. Hopefully she gets a chance to watch. I've told her, I'm like, hey, look, you might not be able to be on the night, but that's okay. Get your rest. You can send us your comments. We always enjoy getting our comments here and questions and such for the show. And as always, we are presented by Buzz Sports CLE. You can follow me on Twitter at egreen4325. You can follow Madison at madtravels24. And Megan can also be followed on Twitter at MeganD44. Follow the show at Going Nuclear CLE. Please, if you enjoy the show, subscribe on YouTube, share it with your friends, let them know what we're all about. We'd love to have you join us and ask us questions. So, Madison, we are just starting the second weekend of March Madness. What were your thoughts last weekend on all the games? There were upsets. We have some Cinderella stories still going on here. You got Princeton making it to the second weekend. You had the big Fairleigh Dickinson victory and the Furman victory. What did you think? Were you like, is this crazy?
Yeah, I don't want to put it up with like the best of the best in terms of upsets. There were a lot of like not great games, I feel like, towards the back half of the weekend, but you obviously got the early upsets, which are always fun. You did obviously get the 16 over the 1, which was a good time. Hoping Princeton can kind of keep the momentum going. Let's see where that'll take them. I survived the weekend with my 2 championship picks in the brackets that I did, so I'm holding firm on that. I did not pick any of the ones that got knocked out. I don't know about you. Hopefully your brackets are faring okay.
Well, actually, that's a good question. I did not. I decided against doing the brackets. We were just talking here before the show started about the gambling. And, with the ability to wager on games, I felt like, I don't feel like doing a whole bracket because then I just get angry. I mean, even if I'm not doing it for money, I get kind of frustrated that the teams that I'm like, why are they losing? Whereas if I've got no dog in the fight, I'm not, it's not too bad. So who do you have in the championship game?
I got Alabama in 1, and then I have Houston in a second bracket. So one of the 2. Houston, I didn't love on opening weekend. Alabama looked pretty good, although I wouldn't really love if they won. But, I mean, they've been pretty consistently good all year, so I did pick them for that reason. But we'll see how the chips fall.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, we talked about Houston a little bit in the from the perspective of talking about their game against Kent State during the regular season. Kent State goes down to Houston and almost pulls off the upset. I think at that time, Houston was either 1 or 2 in the country at that point. Houston, really, it is their defense. It is not so much their offense that drives their game. I think they've got some talent, and Sampson is a good coach. But it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Like you said, let's see if Princeton can keep it going. They've got Creighton going on here this weekend, tomorrow.
I think that might be right. I'm not actually sure. I haven't even looked at tomorrow. I'm still looking at the games for tonight.
All right. Well, we've got a couple games going on right now. I'm sure folks are watching Michigan State up 1 over K-State, 60-59. And UConn was taking care of business over Arkansas. And you know what's crazy, Madison? So I have a coworker, and she's originally from Connecticut. So she's talking to me a week ago Wednesday before the tournament, and she's like, "Oh, I put money on UConn," because she's from there. She has no real clue about any of these teams, but she puts money on it, and she's going to be the type of person who wins. I mean, this is exactly what we were discussing, and this is why I would get frustrated with doing brackets or doing whatever. It's like I'm trying to make these educated guesses, and it ends up foiling me. But anyway, it's still fun. Last week, early on Thursday, I sat at the bar, watched some games, so it was all good. Spent the rest of the weekend at home. Yeah, we'll get back to that. Well, actually, let me just say this. They have some interesting broadcast teams, during these games. And I gotta say, I would not be upset if I never heard Spiro Ditas do another sporting event ever again. I hate when he does the Browns games. and I really hated him covering the Indiana Kent State game. He was so all over, Trace Jackson Davis for Indiana. It was ridiculous. Not just against Kent on Friday night, but in the Sunday night game as well. And I'm like, wait a second. You're a national broadcaster. Aren't you supposed to have some kind of impartiality? I looked. It's not like he went there, got his undergrad at Indiana or had anything to do with them. But I'm like, dude, it's one thing to be excited, but let's be an equal opportunity, announcer and be excited for both teams. I just didn't see that, and that was frustrating as all get out to me. But hopefully for the rest of the tournament, they'll have the better broadcast teams together as it narrows down and shrinks down. So it is what it is. And over the weekend, check this out, Madison. We've had this discussion at some juncture. We talked about the chicken sandwiches and chicken from different establishments, be it Chick-fil-A, Raising Cane's, Popeyes, etc. So over the weekend, my wife and I, we decided to go to Popeyes. Went to Popeyes to see what all the hype was about with the spicy chicken sandwich. Now, have you had that? Have you partaken?
I have, but it's been a bit. It's been a while.
You did give it a try. You did give it a try.
I did. I had to.
Okay, right. And it's just one of those things we never got over there. I mean, I'm like, I saw the line. I'm like, I don't know. But recently we were like, we need to get over there and try that. So we go over there and we try it. And like, it was good, but it wasn't great. It wasn't so great that I could see sitting I would not sit in a line just to get that sandwich.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I can now officially say I have partaken and can render an opinion on the sandwich in and of itself. I'm just as happy going to Wendy's and getting their spicy chicken sandwich or going to Chick-fil-A and getting a spicy chicken sandwich there as well. Good, but not great. It is what it is. Did you stay up late at all over the past week or so, or did you catch any of the action of the World Baseball Classic?
I didn't, no. I was watching mostly March Madness, which took up some of the time, and then I feel like the Cavs were on some of the other days, so I did not get to watch any of it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch much of it. I had it on in the background the other night during the final, and I think even during the semifinal, I might have had it on. And I guess it was an exciting finish. Obviously, there was a lot of hubbub and discussion about the importance of the World Baseball Classic to the United States players versus players from around the world. And you look at it from the perspective of, okay, you had the injuries to Altuve and to Diaz, Edwin Diaz for the Mets, losing him for an entire season. I mean, I don't know. In that respect, when you look at all these worldwide events, whether it's the World Cup or Olympics, where you've got professionals going and playing in games where they don't get paid a dime. If I'm an employer, if I run these organizations, if I'm their employer, I don't know if I'm a little bit perturbed by the use of professional athletes in these games that are meaningless, relatively speaking.
Yeah, I think, the World Cup's like the only one in my mind where you have to have your best people. And they do get paid for that if you win anyways. You get paid, I think, on the national team anyways. They may be really the only one that structures payments the way they do. And for like the women, that's the only way they really make money. They have the professional league, but not on the same level as like what the men are getting paid to play professionally. And they just upped the World Cup money actually for the women. I should note that that's a nice little addition there from FIFA. But yeah, for like NBA and like baseball, like I don't think it's worth it. I don't like, people don't tune into that like the World Cup because it's so infrequent. I think maybe is like, every 4 years, and I don't even know how often the other tournaments are. That's how little I've paid attention. So if I'm not paying attention, what's it really worth to potentially miss a whole season of your own, regular professional league? So not worth it to me.
Exactly. I mean, I was really excited to see that Jose was like, look, they don't pay me. I'm not Jose Ramirez. That is, I'm not playing. And I
Yeah.
think that makes me happy because I'm like, oh, we didn't lose anybody for once. We didn't, we weren't the team that was, hit with some ridiculous injury. I mean, we've had our share of ridiculous injuries in Cleveland. So I'm glad that's not the case, but boy, it was apparently a great ending. I did not stay up to watch it. I went to sleep, woke up, checked it out the next morning, saw that there was the showdown between the Angels. It'll be the biggest moment of Ohtani and Trout's season because they stink. The Angels are not very good for these great players they've got. They are completely underwhelming. I'm just surprised it wasn't that long ago that they won a World Series.
Yeah, I mean,
So
you would think with the talent that they have, they can figure it out. But yeah, I mean, they're paying guys enough money at least. So maybe being a small market team isn't so bad after all. Money
right,
doesn't buy you wins.
right. I mean, so if you were the type of person, right? So people talk about, oh, money doesn't buy you happiness, but wouldn't you agree? And that as my wife's grandmother said to her, well, it sure does make it easier, you
Yeah.
know, having the money. From that perspective, it's like when you have the money in an organization, you have the owners that are willing to spend and invest in the players, it does give you a bit of a leg up, um, at least from the outset, of potentially reaching the postseason and being the last team standing. So from that perspective, I can see it, but I don't know. Would you rather have, a lot of money, or are you like, no, 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 I don't need money. It won't make me happy.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been a big like money person per se in the terms of like ownership and spending. I mean, obviously, I think Cleveland, of all places, knows that's often a place where veterans go to collect some big checks and then they just kind of coast and they don't play to the level that they had played that had earned them the contract that we offer them. So, I think there's some part of me that's like, yeah, I don't really want to spend huge for guys that are just going to kind of like, I don't really have to play for them. They're paying me anyways. I think that's probably like the mentality I would have.
Right. So, with that all in mind, and then since we're talking baseball, we're talking about spending and veterans and so on and so forth. Guardians opening day 1 week away, and they start out on the West Coast, which is not necessarily a bad thing. A couple of good things about it. One, you get some of your West Coast games out of the way right off the bat.
Yeah.
Two, you're not contending with the ridiculous weather in Cleveland, where sometimes you've got snow on opening day.
Yep.
So you got that going for you. But a trip to Seattle and then Oakland for 4. So 3 in Seattle, 4 in Oakland. You got 7 games on the road before you get to come home for the home opener. How do you feel about the Guardians heading into this season versus last season, on where you think they could potentially finish in the AL Central and in the overall picture?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like last year we kind of came in with almost no expectations. Like we got picked. What did we get picked last? I think in the division, I was like very low. So I mean, I definitely think we'll finish at the top of the division, or at least that's the hope. I mean, I don't think we got worse. If anything, we added to the roster. And they always do a good job in their farm system. So you're, expecting to bring some guys up that maybe we haven't seen yet, that we know are talented. So that helps. Yeah, I mean, I think you're hoping to get back to, the playoffs and make a run and, make a run at one of those big market teams like the Yankees who we lost to. So I think that's the goal. It's kind of like the Cavs where they're kind of a weird spot where they're kind of doing more with less potentially. And, it's hard to get a read on where exactly they should be in terms of projections. But I don't think it's unrealistic to have them atop the division.
Right. And so talking about the money and the spending, I agree 100% with your thoughts there on what to expect from them and what we're looking for out of the team this season. I was looking at something that a local Cleveland sports guy was talking about. He said or proposed that, look, if we're in it and we're near the top and there's an opportunity, would you go after some high price talent? Would you go on a 1 year rental for like Shohei Ohtani on a 1 year rental? Would you give up everything, the entire farm system, to get one guy if you thought that would put you over the top? Or do you say, look, we don't need just a 1 year rental. We don't want to mortgage the future for this one
Yeah.
season.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to win in any professional sports league, right? Like if you've got a guy that'll give you one, like if we're talking like one championship, it's like you trade your soul to the devil to get a championship, and that's the price you pay. In a lot of instances, there aren't a ton of runs where you've got like back to back to back to back, especially with a small market team where you're really not able to spend big on somebody. So, I mean, I would take a swing if we're sitting in a good spot, come mid-year and the trade deadline's approaching and we're like, yeah, like let's take a swing. You got to take a swing, in my opinion. Like if it's going to make you better. I mean, you don't know, you can't guarantee health, but assuming that guy's healthy, if you think he'll put you over the top, you got to make the move.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the year in 2016, getting Andrew Miller was huge.
Yeah,
That was huge. I mean, wow, they were. I think that if Bauer doesn't mess up his hand playing with a drone, we might very well have won that World Series. Because having to throw out, Tomlin a couple times was not ideal, and then putting Klubs back in on short rest was just not an ideal situation for the Indians at the time. And it was a valiant run. It was certainly a valiant run. Did you see the post or the promotion that the Guardians are doing where you can buy, including opening day, for $49 a month? I guess so this is per ticket. You can get standing room only ticket for $49 a month for access to all home games that particular month. I don't know about you, but I'm all over that. If I'm in Cleveland, I would be all over that because, for goodness sake, there's enough places like in the corner, in the right field corner, you can go there and sit down and have a beer and still be kind of in the action. So you can still find a place to sit down for most of the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good idea to fill the stadium when they've had some issues getting people, in the door. I mean, it's especially as the Cavs make their run through the playoffs, like you've got people going to both. Like that was my favorite thing when the Cavs were in the playoffs in like LeBron 2.0 era is, we went to the game before we went over to, an NBA game, and it was a great time. And like the energy is picking up and like everybody's excited. So hopefully they can feed off of that. But I do think the monthly promotion's a really good idea from them and something not a lot of people are doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be awesome. And especially with the renovations they're going to do to the Terrace Club and up in that left field corner in the upper deck. And I think even in the right field corner, or, the upper deck in the outfield, they're going to make renovations as well. The renderings are beautiful. And it's going to create that, what's the word I'm looking for, the social atmosphere at the game, because you're standing around for a while. Now, granted, with the rule changes, things it'll be interesting to see. The things are moving along much quicker, so you don't have time to kind of just sit there and piddle around. You should be paying attention because the pitcher's not going to step off the mound, the batter's not going to step out of the box, and they're not going to throw over to first base 20 times. So there's more to watch. There's definitely more to watch. You cut a half hour off of the experience. And, it's good times. It is good times there. So the Cavs are in action tonight. They are taking on the Nets again in what everyone is calling, I guess this is the way to refer it now, the baseball series, game 2 of 2 against the Nets. And the other night, they looked pretty darn good for the most part until the fourth quarter. They took the foot off the gas. is that just a product of a young team? Is it the product of what's wrong with teams that they lose the killer mentality when they've got a team on the ropes?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's fair to say they lose that killer mentality. It's like they're most comfortable being down, and when they're up, they're a little more uncomfortable. I mean, they have what I think, well, they have like the most 20-point wins and the most,
Yes.
30-point wins, something like that, 25-point wins. But yeah, I mean, they lost focus for sure. Like they probably started thinking about their, after game plans, like which bars are we going to, like that kind of thing. You're in New York. So it was frustrating, but I mean, I didn't ever really feel like we had lost the game, like where we put ourselves in a position where I was really, really concerned. I mean, I was annoyed more than I was like concerned we would lose. But it was frustrating. I mean, we just lost focus at the end of the day. And I don't like, it's probably a product of the long season. I mean, we're getting towards the end of it. We're about to head into playoffs. And so it's easier, I think, to lose focus at this point. But they pulled it out, and that's what matters. They don't ask you, by how much. They just ask if you won. So,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And everybody, it was good to have Jared Allen back on the floor.
yeah,
I mean, just thank goodness that the injuries that have been suffered this season, especially to the eye,
yeah,
for Garland at the beginning of the season, and then for Allen, have not been any worse than they have been. I mean, that's just crazy. And I think I read a quote from him that he had tried putting on the goggles, but it just wasn't working for him. So, you got to, you try it, you do what you can do. Yeah, that's no good. But as we were discussing earlier, the Cavs looks like the magic number for home court is 5. Right now, leading in Brooklyn tonight, and the Knicks have severely narrowed the gap against
I know.
Orlando. That game's on NBA TV, so when we get done here, I might have to check that out along with the March Madness. But they're only down 7 to Orlando at halftime. Would certainly be good for them to lose, and that would take 2 games off of the magic number for us and get us close to closing in on clinching home court. And I think that's that would be a great thing. The sooner they can do that, the better the possibility they can get some guys rest. However, for my own selfish reasons, I might be a little bit disappointed in that. Supposed to go to the home game April 2nd against the Pacers. And if they're resting everybody, I'm going to be really, really sad about that. I mean, it'll be
Yeah.
understandable from a sports from like understanding the business, and the goal is to be healthy for the playoffs and to win in the playoffs. But certainly would be a little bit disappointing. How is I don't think we really talked about it. How are the games down in Charlotte? The Cavs won both games. And in fact, the game you were at, that was the one that they had to make a mad comeback, correct?
I don't think so. Now it's
No,
been so
I'm
long. I don't
misremembering.
even know. I may be misremembering. I feel like we were up for most of the game, but it was kind of like a little bit close, I guess. I don't know. Nothing tops the game from last year when they had that shot that was after the whistle that was out of bounds and also didn't go in but counted somehow. So that's the only thing I can really remember from that. But no, it's fun. I mean, there's a ton of Cavs fans when you go to Charlotte. And I don't know if that's a product of like a ton of Ohio people being in the North Carolina area, and that's just kind of how we typically operate. Or if it's a product of Charlotte just not being very good. They had a ton of seats left. They still had a ton of seats for Tuesday that were just regular tickets that hadn't sold. So I almost went down for the Tuesday game too, but I decided not to. But I got good seats, very close. It was good to see Mitchell play in a Cavs uniform. He'd be the only one I think might be at risk of sitting because his finger still seems to be bothering him for your game.
Yeah.
But it was a good time.
Well, that's good. Now, did you get him? Did you get his attention? Were you able to yell to him, get his attention so that he knew you were there?
No, I got there when they opened, and there was already a line, like when they opened the gates and stuff, and I didn't really get in with enough time. I feel like I got in earlier last time we went, but for whatever reason, they weren't letting people in as early today when I went this past game. So
Right.
we tried.
Right. Yeah, I don't know if there'll be any benefits that I'll be able to glom off of from my dad and his wife. They do have the season ticket package. Um, for I think they got 20 games or whatever it is, and it does include the game against the Pacers that we're going to go to. Although we're going to sit, me and the kids are going to sit up, in the upper level, but still
Yeah.
near center, kind of near midcourt, the midcourt line. So that's still great. But I don't know if based upon that we might be able to get in the building slightly earlier. I'm not sure how that'll all work out, but I was hoping I have this pipe dream that maybe it'll be like when Jacob and we went to the Browns game against the Commanders and
Yeah.
we're able to get in early and get down and get it, get a couple autographs. That would be amazing if it could pull it off. If not, it is what it is. I just want them to experience it and enjoy it. And I haven't been to a game in 20 years myself, so I
Yeah.
will definitely be looking forward to that. Um, so if the Cavs do lock up, hopefully it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when they lock up the fourth
Yeah.
seed. Going into the playoffs, I think that there's still this elephant in the room of who's going to be the additional scorer for the Cavs. Are we going to have to rely? Is it really going to be hit or miss on Levert? Or is there anybody else who might possibly be able to step up into that role for the Cavs?
Yeah, I mean, Levert's been pretty good lately. Better than I think he had a stretch, obviously, towards the middle of the season where he wasn't as great. But even if he's not scoring, he's typically playmaking. His assists, I think, are up, or at least they seem to be from the eye test. And if he's creating for others, that's just as good, in my opinion. If we're spreading the ball, and I don't really care who's scoring at that point, if it's starters or bench players, like no matter what, you got to put points on the board, right? And Jetty can get hot for sure. He's, I think, playing with a little more confidence as of late. But it's interesting because we do mess with the lineup, and you will mess with the lineup once you get into a series with teams. And whether guys like Jetty, I mean, Karras is going to play regardless. Guys like Lamar are going to get cold because we're not using them except for in spot situations. So in my opinion, Jetty's a guy you play and, you kind of see what you have with them, and he can get hot in a hurry and then he can cool off in a hurry. But I think you got to give him a chance in any series. I wouldn't go like DMP with, in playoffs with him just because he can get hot. And you want to give him the chance to, but he needs the confidence, I think, to do that if he's going to be that bench guy that steps up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if there's one thing that we should take away from the Cavs championship season, Game 6, one of the pivotal moves was bringing in Dante Jones. I mean, little used Dante Jones comes in and helps to right the ship and save the day in
Yeah.
Game 6. It's a bold move on T. Lou's part at that point. And I just hope that JB has that foresight and shows that he shows me wrong, that he can make adjustments on the fly, because I have been ye of little faith and on the fire JB, train quite often this season when things have been looking a little bit, dreary in spots. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do come playoff time here. I think that finally the schedule is in fact working out for the Cavs. I mean, they had so many weeks where they're playing 4 games in,
Mm-hmm.
7 days, and they're playing back, back to back
Yeah.
here, back to back there. They're finally catching a break, and maybe it's one of those things like where you're looking at it and you're going, wait a second, is this ever going to ease up? Are they going to get through this, rough patch? And sure enough, they've managed to come out on the other side pretty well. So I guess we shall see. Gosh, I know those guys have confidence in Okoro. I would love to see it translate more consistently.
He's already hit 2 threes tonight, I think. Yeah, may have missed
Whoa!
another one. Hey,
Oh
he
man.
doesn't take a lot of shots, and we don't really want him to. I mean, some people want him to take more shots, but like if he's taking more shots, you're taking shots away from the core four, and I don't think you want to do that either.
Well, that's true, but okay. Theoretically, though, if he's not taking shots and they kick it to him in the corner, and they're not going to go out, they don't think he's going to shoot it. They're not going to go out and challenge him. They're just going to
He's
let him
taking
stand out
shots
there.
when he's open, though. He just doesn't take contested shots. He had that one step back off a dribble where I was like, "Who is this man?" And he hit it. But I mean,
Nice.
he's not forcing shots up. He's taking it if he's open, and he does take them. He's not shying away from them.
Well, there you go. Look, you are his staunchest supporter.
I
I
do
give
love
you,
Okoro. There's
I
more
give
to
you
the
that.
game than scoring 20 points a game, in my humble opinion.
And I don't disagree with a good lockdown defender. I mean, Dennis Rodman was not a scorer. Dennis Rodman was a defender. He was a rebounder. He had a specific purpose. But
Yeah.
I guess when I look at it from the perspective of what does this team need, does he fill that role? Not that he's a bad player. It's just a
Lately
matter of,
he
okay.
does, though. Lately he does. He's shooting very well from three of late, since like the turn of the year.
So the
He's like hovering around 40.
the percentage has been good. It just hasn't been frequent enough. And when you get a big goose egg, that you're like, oh, kind of rough there. But we'll ride with it. We'll ride with it, and hopefully he gets hot at the right time and keeps playing good defense, and they can eliminate some of the carelessness that they've had in some of these games. But in watching the game the other night and all across the highlight reels, holy Moses, that Donovan Mitchell dunk
Yeah.
over Watanabe was incredible. That was just he completely posterized him. How many can you say was that like a top 5 in-game dunk, posterizing dunk in your opinion?
It was pretty good. I mean, he's had some really good ones. I don't even know if it necessarily cracks the top 5 for him. I mean, he's just like so athletic. I think they talked about it on the broadcast. When he gets into that 1-2 and he like throws his arm back, they fouled him early in this game because he did that exact step and move. And they were like, no, we're not getting dunked on this time. So they just hacked him and he went to the free throw line. But they got to prepare. Now they know, you gotta bring at least a little bit of physicality or you're getting dunked on off that 1-2.
Well, right. And I think the great thing about Mitchell is if you get up on him and you're trying to body or be physical, he'll go right by you. He's
Yeah.
got just great handles and the ability to pull up from anywhere. I'm so impressed with what he has brought to this team. It's more than I would have thought or could have asked for out of Mitchell. And I think that overall, we gave up a lot, but I think it was a well worth the trade to get him. He has definitely elevated this team. So we'll see what happens. I think that even more time that these guys, he and Garland get to play together, they're gonna get even better. And Mobley is really starting to come into his own. He could use the weight room. He needs to hit up the whey protein.
He's been in the
Shakes.
weight room as what I think Mitchell said. He hasn't skipped a day in the weight room since like January. He's been in there probably too much. I mean, it's hard to get stronger in season because you can't like mess with too many things. But I mean, he put on a good amount of weight over the off season, and I suspect he'll do the same coming up whenever we hit the off season. Hopefully not until June.
Right. Absolutely. And I heard someone talking about if you look at the body type, and it's not just the body type. You look at guys
Yeah.
like Giannis. You
Yeah.
look at KG, dudes that were sticks when they
Yeah.
started, and they grew into their body and really became forceful. So we'll see. He's finding some touch and everything like that. And if he can maybe, just over the summer keep working on the 3-pointer and improve that just a few percentage points, that'll make him an even bigger threat. Because when you play against guys like Embiid, it's not easy. Embiid is a
Right.
beast. And
Yeah.
when you're that much bigger, it doesn't take much to knock somebody down.
Still mad about that. Still mad.
So anyway, so yeah, so the Cavs, let's see, I don't have it. What do you got on the update on the scoreboard there, on the out-of-town
They're
scoreboard?
down 1 with 12.6 left in the second.
Yeah,
They've been up pretty much the second quarter, so they had a run here that they've given up, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's a heck of a high-scoring affair at the end, just about the end of one half, and I guess we'll have to catch the conclusion here, in the second half. Hopefully, they'll be able to pull one out. That sure would be nice to take out Brooklyn, but we shall see. So moving on from the Cavs, little Browns news, more free agency, more pickups this week in the most recent moves. Yesterday, we get Anthony Walker back on a 1-year deal. And the big news everyone was, pumped up for was the trade to the Jets to get Elijah Moore. We give up the 42nd pick, but we pick up a third-round pick at 74. And we pick up Elijah Moore, who ran a 4.3540. I looked at his stats. They weren't anything eye-popping last season. Of course, he dealt with some pretty below-average quarterback play, and he even had the meltdown where he's asking to be traded in October. And I mean, you could see the plus side and the upside and the downside for Elijah Moore.
Yeah, I mean, I think I saw a stat that he had like 35 catchable balls thrown his way, and yet he still caught 36. So he had one more that wasn't, I guess, considered catchable that he brought down. And I know he hit on it a bit in his press conference today, whether he meant to or he was kind of like, it was collateral damage, but he did mention a couple times, like, you can be as quick as you want, but if you're, the ball's not in your vicinity, like there's only so much you can do. So I do like the pickup. I do understand a bit the downside of it. And I actually really liked his press conference. He got pressed on that quite a bit today about, his attitude and how he handled things and, what he would do differently. He is young. He's only 22. You've got room to make mistakes like that, I think. And he had no space in that locker room, once they picked up who they picked up for Aaron Rodgers. He wasn't going to get any playing time. So, they did the right thing, I think, by shipping him out. And he obviously had asked for that last year. I would have liked him last year, but, it's okay. We got him eventually, and that's what counts.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, it'll be interesting to see how he fits in. He seems like he might be the reliable speed guy to stretch the field that the Browns have been searching for. Now, here's my question. I was looking at the list of who's on, in the wide receiver room.
Yeah.
Do you think they give Schwartz one more season, or is he going to be like possibly a training camp casualty?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see how the draft goes for sure. I mean, even with, if we decided not to draft a receiver, if there wasn't one that fell to us that we liked, I don't know that he makes it anyways, because he's, basically like Elijah Moore fills the exact need that he would step into, and he's obviously more reliable than Schwartz is. So I would guess no. I mean, it'd be good if you could have two of those guys. But it's hard. I mean, it's hard to stay on a roster if you haven't produced, and we're probably going to have a rookie. We may add another free agent potentially. We had the guy from, what was it? I'm blanking now. The guy that came in for a visit over the week before we signed Elijah Moore.
Oh,
he's a little bit older.
And I am also drawing a blank on that as well. Whomever the other receiver was that we had visiting.
Speedy guy. Yeah.
Right.
Like if we can get him for cheap, then yeah, there's like no chance. I mean, it'll, free agency's not over. There's not a ton in the receiver area, I guess, for free agents, but I would guess this is the end of the road for him. But I mean, never say never. We do tend to not like to cut earlier round picks, so we'll see.
Right. And Andrew Berry's going to want to stick with his guy. And at least so far, that's what we've seen is his pattern is to stick with the guys that he brought in. But, you look at it. So you're starting, if you go to a three receiver set, who are your three guys? You're going to have Cooper, you're going to have DPJ, and you're going to have Moore out there. And
Yep.
then you figure you've got Njoku,
Mm-hmm.
and you've also got David Bell as
Mm-hmm.
well. If you need a guy to potentially, if it's not going to be Elijah Moore, he did it in his rookie season. They had him running like some jet sweeps, so he could be the jet sweep guy. Potentially, we'll have Jakeem Grant back, and although
Yeah,
he'll be
that's
with
the
more
one.
kids,
That's the wild card for sure. That's a good point.
so we'll see there. But then, all right, so we talk about the wide receiver room. Now looking at the running back room, at this point, we've got Chubb and Ford.
Yep.
And Hunt is still a free agent. He's sitting out there. Dearness Johnson has signed with the Jaguars. Really, what's our next move, or what's left in the running back room? Is it just do we bring Felton back into the running back room, or do we find somebody else off the street to fill that void?
Yeah, I mean, I am guessing it's a pretty deep draft for running backs. I would guess like a late round flyer on a guy is really probably what I'm thinking to fill the third. I just don't foresee Hunt being back at this
Right.
point.
I don't either. I don't either.
Yeah,
And the
I
fact
mean,
that he hasn't,
unless the market just dries up completely, maybe. But yeah.
I mean, he hasn't signed anywhere. I'm kind of surprised. However, you're obviously waiting for the domino. You're waiting for the Ezekiel Elliott thing
Yeah.
to, that domino to fall. And I know I'm really hoping he decides to go to the Eagles, because he apparently has it narrowed down to the Eagles, the Jets, and I think the Ravens. I would be surprised if he went to the Ravens, because I feel like they've got a loaded backfield between unless I've missed something, between J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. I feel like they got a pretty full running back room. And I'm not sure about the Jets running back situation, but I wouldn't
Yeah.
be upset if he stayed in the NFC. It's like, can we stay away from the AFC? I know he can have a potential impact on the game, and certainly don't want to see him playing in Baltimore. And we'll circle back to Baltimore, because as we were talking, talking a little earlier before the show, talking about the Lamar Jackson saga and the news that came out about this agent or non-agent allegedly calling people. That's a bunch of ridiculousness. How do you feel about Anthony Walker coming back to the team? He visited with the Commanders, ultimately didn't get an offer or whatever, but the Browns bring him back from, I think it's a two-part thing. One, it's from a player perspective, and two, it's just a leadership role, a veteran leader out
Mhm.
there. Which do you think is going to be more impactful, his actual play on the field or his locker room presence and veteran mentality?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably going to depend on how healthy he's able to be. I mean, our run defense obviously took a huge hit after we lost him. And he is kind of the quarterback of the defense, or at least he has been. And it's good to have him back. I think I saw someone say, like, you brought back the smartest guy on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball with Anthony Walker. The offensive side, I think, would be Dobbs, just because he's a rocket scientist. But, but I mean, from a leadership perspective, obviously the guys really respond to him because they, made sure to keep him on the sidelines when he could be there as he was recovering from his injury. So obviously they wanted him there for that reason. So I think that's a really underrated signing for us. It kind of gets lost in the sauce a bit because we've had some splash moves that, we were hoping for. But I think that's a really good move to kind of shore up that linebacker room.
Right. And I think it makes it one of those things where we've done enough that we aren't in any dire need at
Yeah.
any particular position group. Yes, we can improve. we can certainly try and find somebody, find some people, some pieces, additional pieces in the draft
Yeah.
that will add to this team. One guy, our guy, I want to thank Craig Fountain as always for getting us on the air here, as we're presented by Buzz Sports CLE. Craig has been talking about the guy from Georgia, I believe it's Kenny McIntosh, as a
Mm-hmm.
possible guy in the backfield, maybe who might be available a little bit later. Now, I don't know if he would fall all the way into the 70s where we're currently at, but um, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I wonder if that guy from Kansas State, who his name eludes me, the speedster, he's a small guy, might be named Deuce. Does that sound
Oh
familiar?
yeah, Juice Vaughn, I think.
Yeah, I
Juice
think
Vaughn.
that's it. I think Deuce Vaughn, and I mean, I don't know where our biggest area of need is going to be, but it certainly will be interesting, and I'm gonna be curious when the schedule comes out. And well, I mean, well, obviously we'll have the draft before, well, I think the schedule will come out, then the draft will come out, then we'll have the draft, and it'll just be interesting to see how this all develops. Last year, gosh, I mean, it seems like ages ago that we were dealing with the how many games is Deshaun going to get suspended? What are we going to do? How are we going to
Yeah.
fare without him? And thank goodness that is not the dark cloud hanging over the team heading into this season, and hopefully nothing crazy will happen. In the remainder of the off season. So, with all the off season moves that we have made, we picked up. We've got Tomlinson on the defensive line. We got Juan Thornhill. We bring back Walker. We pick up Elijah Moore, and a couple other guys who are kind of rotational type players. We re-signed Ethan Posick. We're bringing back Taki, although my understanding is he's not going to be available until later in the season, obviously based upon when his injury occurred. Um,
Yeah.
but what's your grade for the Browns offseason free agency so far?
Yeah, I mean it's hard not to give it an A, I think. I mean, even, all the national guys are giving them a lot of credit. Um, the only hesitancy for me is we made a lot of really good off-season moves a couple of years ago and they didn't all pan out. And so, I want to see the product on the field a little bit before I really feel confident in my grade. Like I don't have any problem placing a letter grade on it, but it's hard to say until you actually see how it meshes together and how it plays out. Because we have been off-season champs for a while, and it hasn't turned into really any playoff or Super Bowl runs. So we'd like to see that be the result.
Well, absolutely, and I think that's the thing. We're not. We're not. I think the national media is giving us our credit where credit is due. We're not making the splashiest moves, but we're
Right.
making solid moves. We're filling
Yeah.
areas of need, which is exactly what I'm happy to see them doing. I think that's a good way of approaching it. And you're right. It is difficult to put you put a letter grade on it, but it's kind of with an asterisk. Like you're
Yeah.
like, if these people play the way they potentially can, in theory, it gets this grade. And then you have to reevaluate once the season starts, once training camp gets underway, and you have to take it all, the totality of the circumstances to see where it falls. So you would give them an A, and and I would say that it's not that I don't want to give them an A, because I would. I feel like they've done a lot of right things, but just because I want to reserve judgment, I'll give them a B plus. I'll give them a B plus because they're right on the cusp of the A. B plus right on the cusp of the A. Let's see what happens here. Let's see if they have solved for the run stop issues. Let's see if if Ogbo Okoronkwo can help shore up the other edge on a consistent basis. I do like Thornhill, so I'm really it's a very very high B plus, right on the cusp of an A, but we shall see. So you see a lot of weird things on ESPN, especially during the off season, and I started to wonder. They broadcast a lot of sports. And so I wanted to do a yay or oy vey on particular competitions, quote unquote sports, to determine whether, in fact, they are a sport, why or why not a yay or oy vey. So the first sport I'd like to throw out there, yay or oy vey, cornhole. Is cornhole a sport? Yay or oy vey?
I am going oy vey. I feel like any sport that you get better at when you drink is not really a sport.
Yeah, I completely agree, and to the extent that, like, yes, it's a skill. There is a skill to it. I mean, you have to obviously develop a good throwing style, and there are people who are making money playing tournaments. But yeah, I'm right there. That is a complete oy vey on the cornhole. It's like, why don't you call beer pong a sport and stuff? Yeah, I'm not down with that. Okay. Now, this has been around much longer. This isn't just a college fraternity game, a college party game here. Bowling, sport or not sport, yay or oy vey?
I will say yay, it is a sport because when I have gone bowling, my arm is very sore the next day since I do not do it often. So for that reason, I will say yay. But also related, did you realize how expensive bowling is now? We tried to go and it was like $120 for 3 people. Crazy.
Okay,
It's
that's a bit
crazy.
much. That is a bit much.
Crazy. It's crazy.
Wow. I did not realize it was that expensive. They have some, it depends on what kind of alley you go to, though.
Yeah.
You got to go to one of the crappy alleys where, like, they're still rocking the same carpet from the 1970s,
Yeah.
and the shoes are probably from the 70s as well, been sprayed out with the aerosol many times. But yeah, it all depends. If you go to one of the fancy places, yeah, it can get a bit pricey. I mean, you pay for what you get. But yeah, that's crazy. I'm gonna also, although it does fit the criteria where there's always the potential you could get better the more you drink.
Yeah.
Um,
That's true.
I would say that in light of your argument and what you stated about the arm being sore, there is a level of training that you can do to get better at it. It is not simply, hey, I'm going to pick up a bean bag and toss it. It's like to do the bowl, to be able to bowl. It's not that simple. It is not that simple to be able to understand how the lanes, the patterns of the oil, and so on and so forth. So I'll also give that a yay. Okay, another game that has been kind of making its way around in the bars, and I've seen it on ESPN. Axe throwing. Axe throwing, is it a sport or not a sport? Yay or oy vey?
That's a tough one. I have not actually been axe throwing, but I do feel like there is a bit of an art to it. So I will say, yay, it's a sport.
Yeah, I mean, I'm having a tough thing about, like, just the danger of throwing. Hey, let me go to a bar, get drunk, and throw an axe. Now, again, I don't know that the competitors are drinking when they're throwing an axe. But it's just interesting that it's on ESPN. All I can think about is, the movie Dodgeball and having it on the Ocho, as
Yeah.
opposed to being on ESPN. I think there's an art to it, certainly, like you said. And there might be some skill, but ultimately, I'm going to go oy vey on that. I'm just going to go oy vey on axe throwing because you don't have to be, and having not done it myself, I welcome anyone who's listening to this to give us their input on the axe throwing as to what physical skills you need to have to do so on the regular. All right. Two more. Next one, darts. Are darts a sport?
I will go yay, but for the Ted Lasso darts scene only. That's my favorite of the Ted Lasso scenes, I think, is when he gives his monologue playing darts. I don't know if you watch that show, but it is a classic moment.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out, and I'm gonna go oy vey on it. Based same argument as the axe throwing. While there is a skill, I'm not willing to call it a sport. Not willing to call that a sport. Now, this is something that actually has sport in its title. And I'm really wondering about this, even though it's a booming business. Esports. They've got college teams. What is it? The Cavs Legion? Esports. So you got guys who generally, like, it doesn't, I don't know. I don't know what physical skills it takes. Yay or oy vey, esports.
I will go a very, very firm oy vey. I hate that this is part of athletic departments now because there is no physical ability involved with it. I mean, maybe people want to debate me on that. I don't know. But like, there's no physical, you're holding a controller. That's all you're doing. And you're living out the dream of being athletic by playing a video game. So no, I'm going to go oy vey.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm oy vey on that 100%. I mean, yeah, you can get good at a game, but I don't know. That takes an amazing amount of laziness to sit in front of your TV all the time playing a video game that you get that good at it. I mean, I look at the people who generally are the gamers, and most times it doesn't make me think of somebody who is necessarily athletically inclined or in the best of shape health wise. Is just my general impression of that. But maybe I'm being a little rough on people. So again, I welcome any comments. Anybody who wants to rebut, our position here on esports, whether they are a sport or not. Now, if somebody wants to offer me a job in esports, commentating or whatever, I'll be more than happy to do that. But so you would never have heard me make these comments at all. So anyway, so another exciting rendition of yay or oy vey. And with that, we go to our going nuclear opinions, points of the week. Madison, it's already Thursday. What has you going nuclear this week?
Yeah. I will dip into work this time,
Right,
which I don't
do
too terribly often. But there are people who take it so personally when you like leave them off of a meeting invite when they don't really have anything to do with the meeting. They just want to be like in the know and like be in your business. And then they get offended when they find out there was a meeting that they weren't a part of. And you're like, okay, look, like we have a mandate to have less meetings. So I'm trying to save you some time because you don't need to be there. If you have a question, you can ask me. And the same person gets upset when someone goes like talks to their like it's just like, okay, you've got a little bit of a double standard. You want to be involved in everything, but God forbid someone go around you to ask a question so they get an answer faster, like, whatever. So that's my thing this week. I just need people to calm down and not take things personally because it's not about you. And I'm also trying to help you out and save you some time because we're all busy. We all got stuff to do. You don't need to sit in and listen to this meeting that you're not even paying attention to because you're multitasking anyways.
Yeah, that good point. Excellent point there. It's like sometimes people just don't want to, like you said, they want to be all up in the business and so on and so forth. That would in fact have me going nuclear as well. What has me going nuclear this week is something that's ongoing, but it's been particularly brutal during the free agency season. The Twitter hate, the fan on fan hate regarding the Browns and free agency on social media, specifically, I can point to Twitter, is absolutely ridiculous. People just get completely butthurt over these things, and they don't want to uh, simply acknowledge that somebody else might have a different opinion. And it's
Yeah.
okay. It is quite okay for somebody else to not share the same opinion with you. And people go absolutely berserk and they're going crazy. And along those lines of the fan on fan hate, which is just ridiculous. We really need to concentrate our efforts and worry about Pittsburgh fan and Baltimore fan and Cincinnati fan. That's where we should really be, directing our anger or snarky comments, if at all, if you even want to get into that. And I don't even know that you need to get into that. But the Browns on Browns, the Cleveland on Cleveland fan hate is kind of ridiculous. But golly, I talked about this last week, the people, or the week before, the people trolling bots and spam and things like that. I'm on a Browns Twitter group, and for some reason there's all these posts in there from like Cincinnati fan and this. I'm like, what are you doing? Will you just please, like, that's what you have to do with your time. You got to go and you got to ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And I mean, I try to ignore it. I really do, but it just bugs me. It has me going nuclear. The fact that in this day and age, that's what we're doing. And we're, like you said, mind your business, and all that jazz. So yeah, good times, good times. So it looks like, looks like Kansas State is going to knock out Michigan State. That's big. That's the last Big Ten team in the tournament remaining, and we can now turn our attention to the Cavs here. See if they can't pull one out against Brooklyn. So Madison, unless you've got something else burning, I think that's going to do it for us tonight.
I think so.
Okay. Oh, I take that back. Did you see the Randolph-Macon men's team that, get honored at Greensboro for the 2022 national championship?
Oh, no, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I saw a post from RMC Hoops, and actually there was a crowd shot during the game, and I'm like, hey, I paused it and I looked, and there's people wearing Randolph-Macon basketball shirts or sweatshirts in the crowd. And sure enough, I saw a post from RMC Hoops that they were honored during halftime down in Greensboro for the 2022 national championship. Sadly disappointed to see that Christopher Newport won the men's and at the buzzer beat Mountain Union in Ohio school.
Yeah.
So that was tough. That was real tough. But oh well, there's always next season. There's always next season.
Hopefully.
So, folks, yeah. So, folks, once again, wanted to thank you all for tuning in. Going nuclear, full-blown coverage of the land. We are presented by Buzz Sports CLE. You can follow me on Twitter at egreen4325. You can follow Madison at madtravels24. Hopefully, Megan will be back with us next week. Megan Donovan at MeganD44. Follow the show at Going Nuclear CLE. Tune into us on YouTube or through your Twitter or Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share it with your friends, and we'll look forward to having you join us next time here on Going Nuclear, full-blown coverage of the land. Have a good night.